Hey, what's going on everyone? Nick with Renowned Reptiles here. Today we're going to touch on a controversial genetic. We're talking about the scaleless ball python. In this video, we'll touch on the history, where the gene came from, why it's controversial. We will also touch on how I personally feel about the scaleless gene and the fully scaleless animals. And we will also touch on where I think the project is going. So I hope you find this video informative, and if nothing else, it clears up any questions that you might have about the gene. So let's check out a scaleless ball python. This is a normal male ball python, but it is a scaleless ball python. And he is also 50% het for true ghost. So that is 50% het exanthic and 50% chance of being het hypo. I just wanted a scaleless. I didn't really care what the other genetics were within it. First up, a little history on the gene. Somebody imported a scaleless head animal from the wild, meaning they picked up a snake in the wild. He was either off a farm over in Togo, Ghana, Benin, where ball pythons come from, over in West Africa. Somebody picked it up in a shipment, thought it was interesting that it was missing a couple scales on its head, maybe just a scar, nothing crazy, no big deal. And so they sold it off. So Brian Barczyk, however it came about, ended up with that animal and decided to work the project. And everyone told him he was crazy and that was just some missing scales on the head. There's no way that that would produce a fully scaleless animal. He said, I bet if I breed two of these together, I can make a scaleless animal, and had a bunch of naysayers for it, but decided to continue to work the project. And lo and behold, he was doing an egg cutting and hatched out his first scaleless animal. So that is the history. Brian Barczyk over at BHB out of Michigan produced the first all scaleless animal. So pretty cool. The reason it's controversial is Brian Barczyk alone has a little bit of controversy around his name. Now every time you get that big and popular and have that much of a following, you're going to get some haters alongside of that as well. So a little controversy there. The other part is, I can't speak to 100% certainty what happened, but I believe a lot of animals in Brian's collection were sick or dying, and I think the scaleless was one of those that passed away. So the first ever produced scaleless ball python didn't survive to adulthood. Again, controversy. And why that's controversial is people then doubt whether they're viable. If they can't even make it to adulthood, how are these things going to breed, reproduce, and create full, beautiful animals just like this? So, controversy. The other big difference is there are other scaleless reptiles. There's other scaleless snakes that are actually pretty common and readily available in corn snakes, rat snakes. I've even seen scaleless rattlesnakes and other vipers. And there's other examples of scaleless in lizards. So if you've ever heard of a leatherback bearded dragon, I would compare that to the scaleless head ball python. So most species of snakes have scales along the belly here called scutes, and the thing that's different is the scaleless ball python does not have that. So again, adding a layer of controversy. Now potentially the snakes can't take care of themselves. How are they going to protect themselves? Can they even move the same way? Because a lot of times snakes use those scutes to help them move. So to be missing those scutes to a lot of people was a really big deal. Not only was it missing armor on the bottom part of the snake that would be most commonly coming in contact with anything sharp or could damage it, but they thought it couldn't move. So again, controversy. We have the first ever scaleless ball python pass away. We haven't seen a scaleless animal on eggs or gone to adulthood yet. Again, people are able to doubt whether it's viable, and it's not quite the same as other scaleless snakes that have been successful and healthy. When corn snakes were first coming out with the scaleless animals, some of those animals weren't very good breeders. They had some fertility issues and weren't the healthiest animals, a little bit genetically weak. Since then, they've been able to breed that out. Maybe there is another line that they introduced of scaleless, but for the most part, corns do great even when they're scaleless. Lots of controversy, lots of different layers stacked on top of each other to just kind of create a buzz with anything to do with the scaleless ball python. So my next point would be kind of what I think of the scaleless ball python now that I own one. And I can tell you firsthand, they are pretty much just like any other snake. They eat the same, they move the same. He's actually really nice, he feels amazing. And the only little things that you have to do different with Husbandry is you have to keep them drier. So because they don't have that scutes on their belly or another protective layer, oftentimes if you have wet substrate, the belly will shed first because it's having contact with moisture, and then you have some issues with the sheds on top of the back or the head. So, rule of thumb, I keep them really dry. And how I keep them drier is I keep them in the Freedom Breeder FB10s, this tub right here. He's hanging on to it pretty good, but they come with these nice little liners that you can get from Superior Shipping. I'll put their info down below, or a link to these anyways. And you can tell the Scaleless loves it. He won't let it go. So these are called Repti-Zorb liners, and they're cut specifically for the Freedom Breeder size trays with and without cup holders, and most of these are cut to order, so there is a little bit of lead time on shipping. But they do great for the Scaleless. It's easy to spot when they go to the bathroom. I can keep it dry and change it often pretty efficiently. Oh, he let it go. So here's that. So yeah, I keep him on those Repti-Zorb liners and water like normal, and I just don't spray it down or anything. And so the trick with shedding is when you see the animal, it has the skin on the nose start to peel up like it's about to start shedding, I soak them for about 20 minutes. And with soaking, you want to make sure at least half to 3/4 of the animal's body is able to touch the bottom so they don't get too tired and won't be able to hold their head up. I always make sure it's lukewarm water. We don't want to cool them down too much or heat them up. We got to help them maintain a good body temperature. And if you use too warm of water, they get all amped up and start squirming. You use too cold, not good for your animals. So you want lukewarm, room temperature. I soak them for about 20 minutes and that shed comes right off. Other than that, they are the exact same as any other snake. I actually really like this guy. He's pretty darn awesome, feels amazing, and is a great conversation piece. And for some reason, people aren't as afraid to touch a scaleless snake as they are one with scales. I think scales, their movement obviously, and scales are the big deciding factors in whether or not people really like reptiles. So to kind of remove one of those layers from their fear has really helped me bring people in and have them touch a snake for the first time. So from there we graduate onto things with scales about the same size, and we kind of work our way up. But the reason I got this was for reptile shows and to kind of draw some attention to the table, but also just because I wanted a scaleless animal and I wanted a ball python. I made the purchase, and I got this guy from Jason Amos over at Jason Amos Reptiles. I'll put his info in the link down below. I've also done a couple other videos with him as well, and he's got awesome animals. As you can see, he's out here producing scaleless. So here's what I think in regards to people that shouldn't own a scaleless ball python. Now, if you aren't home often or you can't diligently check on your animals, probably shouldn't own a scaleless ball python. If they decide to tip a water dish over or go in the water or make a big mess and go to the bathroom, you need to clean their tub so they're not slithering all through their own excrement or getting overly wet, which causes skin breakdown, just like it would in you or I if we sat in moisture for too long. So if you can't regularly check on your animals, these probably aren't for you. If this is your first snake, this probably isn't for you. The scaleless gene probably isn't for you. And the reason I say that is you do kind of need a little bit more of a trained eye to know when's the good time to soak, how is my snake acting, when is it appropriate, so on and so forth. So I wouldn't recommend this for beginners. The other reason I wouldn't recommend this for beginners is your snake is, at this size especially, is constantly going into blue. We're in one of the nice little gaps where he shed 2 days ago and he still hasn't gone into blue, but it's coming. It's coming. They shed early and often. And so you kind of, in the early stages of life, have a snake that's constantly shedding and needs a little extra care, love, and maintenance. So if you're already taking care of other animals regularly and that's part of your schedule, this should fit in nicely. Yeah, that's it. Those are the only two situations where I think you shouldn't have a scaleless ball python. Other than that, they are completely normal. Don't have any issues whatsoever. Really, really love the personality on this guy. Here's where I think the gene is going. I think this year we will see a female scaleless ball python on eggs. I think it'll happen. And when we do that, all that viability claim saying they won't be able to produce, they're garbage, it's going to go away. That's one layer that is silenced. It's also kind of a second layer of silence because now we have snakes in adulthood. So we've kind of crushed that they're not viable, they die, you know, scenario. So I think seeing the snake on eggs is going to change a lot. The other thing that I think is kind of not talked about as much is the fact that scaleless head animals, in my opinion, look cleaner. It's almost a little bit of an enhancing gene. It makes things nicer. So I think that just having scaleless head, and not even the full scaleless, really improves some projects. It can bring some muddier, darker stuff, a little bit of light and cleanliness. And so I think that part of the gene is underutilized. And when you do get the full scaleless animal, they're just so clean and beautiful, and the colors are amazing. I think the scaleless ball python has a very bright future. We just have some layers of doubt to get through, and we're going to be sailing. So if you haven't considered the scaleless head gene, I would suggest taking another hard look at it. I think there's a lot of potential in the base form and the super form, and I think people are just kind of worried about getting into something at this price and having it pass away. But once we get snakes on eggs into adulthood, more pictures circulating the internet, I think this is going to be a very bright gene in the future. Alright guys, so comment down below, tell me what you think of the scaleless ball python. Tell me if any of you guys own one yet, or would you own one? Have you touched one? I think everyone should get a chance to touch one of these guys. And if you haven't touched one or seen one of the sheds, I think I actually have a shed right over here. The shed does look interesting depending on how you get it or preserve it, but this is a scaleless ball python shed. You know, because of that, I might be naming the snake Richard. If you get it, don't comment down below. Keep it to yourself. Alright guys, that wraps up our look into the scaleless ball python. I think once all these layers of doubt go away, it's going to have a bright future. So comment down below, let me know what you think of it. Keep an eye out for the next video. Should be coming up here soon. I just had an amazing clutch hatch out, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. Tons of super blackhead stuff. So until next time, take care of yourselves. Peace.